Welcome to the Aging Adventure on KFOR. I'm Dale Johnson. Retirement living is on our mind every Saturday morning as we talk with caring, experienced experts at Legacy Retirement Communities. There are 4 communities here in Lincoln: the Legacy, Legacy Terrace, Legacy Estates, and Legacy Arbors. Founded in 1995, Legacy Retirement Communities has held its commitment of elegance, superior quality of care, affordability, and thriving social activity. Helping me this morning and every Saturday morning is John Kopetsky, Executive Director of Legacy Terrace at 5700 Fremont Street, and Kathy Blythe, longtime senior advocate and former host of Problems and Solutions here on KFOR for many years. Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, John.
Good morning to you, Dale.
Mr. Dale, good morning, sir.
Here's what's coming up this morning on the Aging Adventure: an activity attractive to seniors and people of all ages, combining the elements of ping pong, badminton, and tennis. This activity has really taken off the past 15 years, but has been growing for more than 50 years. And Schernikau, fitness instructor at Legacy Terrace, takes us into the world of pickleball. Also on the Aging Adventure, the delight that is grandparenting. Kelly Stenka, marketing and PR director for Legacy, looks at grandparenting from the family connection viewpoint, while our first guest, Clarice Orr, fostered her knowledge of grandparenting by writing a book, The Joy of Grandparenting. Clarice is also a resident of Legacy Estates.
I get to kick things off this morning with Clarice, and I have had the pleasure and the joy of reading The Joy of Grandparenting and of interviewing you before, Clarice. So it's great to have you back on KFOR. For our listeners who aren't familiar with your history, tell us why you decided to research grandparenting in the first place.
Well, I was studying human development in the family, and there was just a lot of research on parents and children, but I liked what Dr. Arthur Kornhaber, a pediatrician, wrote, that grandparents were a vital connection to children. I was a new grandmother and my grandson had moved to California. Dr. Kornhaber said that children related much better to their grandchildren than they did to their own parents. And so, of course, I wanted to know how I was going to maintain this relationship. And I surveyed 200 pairs of grandparents in the Midwest. The most important finding I found was that 87% reported they were close or very close. And what they liked most, and you can guess it, hugs and kisses. And the worst part was they didn't see enough of their grandchildren. But one of the best part was they went home. The emotional closeness didn't matter if you lived next door around the world, but frequency of contact did. And by frequency of contact, we defined it as a phone call, mail, email, text, personal visit once every 2 or 3 weeks. Now, one thing I learned that is very important, you have to keep on good terms with the parents. Sometimes you have to keep your mouth shut. You can't insist that you parent like you did. Now, one of the best things I ever did, I write dear ones. First, this is a letter once a month to all my children and my grandchildren. And I've been doing this for over 45 years. So my family has greatly increased. First, I sent copies with stamps on them. And the letters were about the baby's new teeth or cute things they said. And now I send emails once a month. I hope to include news from some of the grandchildren, but I have to be careful and not say something they don't want the whole world to know. So I've been having a great time now reviewing all those old dear ones. I said I wanted to throw some away, but I've learned some of the grandchildren are really ready to reread their stories. They want to know what's going on. The greats are most fun to keep in touch with. I have greats from Seattle to Morocco, from Florida to New York. And I see them on Zoom and on videos. And I'm trying to encourage them to write to me. I made a good Zoom connection reading little house books to two little great granddaughters in New York. I could relate to Laura when she had storms, blizzard storms, and dust storms, and I could relate to that because that was me.
Clarice, can I jump in here for just a moment and make a suggestion? You need to write another book.
On what?
On grandparenting. You have a lot of wisdom yet to share. And unfortunately, Clarice, we are out of time for this particular segment. We loved your stories. We truly did love your stories. And let's hope that people pick up your book, The Joy of Grandparenting. Clarice, thank you very much. More on grandparenting coming up after the break. You're listening to The Aging Adventure. Welcome back to The Aging Adventure. I'm Dale Johnson with John and Kathy. As Clarice mentioned, she said grandparents, not all of them live close. Some live very far away, but there are always ways to stay connected. Kelly Stenka, Marketing and PR Director for Legacy, joins us on The Aging Adventure to help talk about the connection.
Now, you have 3 kids.
Yes.
And your grandparents and their grandparents are relatively close by, right?
Yes. We all grew up very close to each other. I always joke, we were never probably 20 to 45 minutes away from each other at any given time growing up. So with my grandparents growing up very, very close to us, it was always established very early on that you valued your grandparents in your life and you always did stuff together. And Clarice had mentioned that there's something to the science behind the frequency of contact, at least once every 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm pretty sure my kids have seen their grandparents every single day this last week. So I think we've met the mark for frequency so far. But yeah, so growing up, it was always so important to have grandparents as a part of our lives. So I wanted to instill that value with my kids as well.
What memories do you have that are especially dear to you of your grandparents that really inspired you to introduce your kids and keep them in such contact with their grandparents?
That is a great question, John. I grew up very close with my grandpa so my mom's dad, and then my dad's mom. So dad's mom was very, very Czech, and you went to grandma's house out on the farm and you learned how to bake kolaches and any Czech food under the sun. And so to this day, we have grandma's kolache recipe that during this last year, I like to say I perfected it. It probably could be a little bit better, but so it was really neat to always have that experience with grandma. And then for grandpa, my mom's dad, we to this day, luckily he's still with us. We get a great in our family as well. And we would go on vacations together. Grandpa would teach you how to drive, and he was just always such an integral part of his grandkids' lives as well. So that was just so fun to have that as a role model. And then when you're raising your own children, you see, okay, I like how this happened, or I'd want to change that, but they were just so inspirational and fun to be around.
We always call you the fun mom, Kelly, because you really are, and you have fun children. How do you have them interact with their grandparents? How have they taken that role on to do?
Yes, so it's always funny because Clarice mentioned, she said, don't parent like you would have parented back in the day. But I think that is pretty entertaining sometimes. So while I love to be the fun one, I also let my parents and my mother-in-law too take the lead on a lot of stuff. So while it might be fun for me, or I might think it's fun, there are sometimes where the kids will mention something that reminded them from a scenes of Ghostbusters or the Gremlins. And I said, where did you watch that? We've never watched that in our house. And sure enough, well, I watched it at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Things like that, trying to find the old movies and just having sleepovers at Grandma and Grandpa's if you can. And especially helping the grandparents with tasks and chores that they typically wouldn't do at home. So for instance, my parents still have a wood stove in their basement, and my dad goes out and cuts wood, and my son thinks that is the greatest thing ever. He would like to go to the farm and cut wood. So it just kind of involving them with not their typical day-to-day. And I think what's really fun too is letting the grandparents have the special thing. So I try not to recreate what grandma and grandpa did. I let them own that. So that every time the kids go over there, they know they can count on grandma and grandpa to always have that thing.
Kelly, I know, you cherish the fact that your grandparents were such a part of your life, physically present, and the same with your own kids. Unfortunately, that's not the case for many people today. As Clarice mentioned, she has grandkids on different continents. How can grandparents and grandchildren connect when they're not in the same state?
That is a fantastic question. Clarice had so many great ideas between Zoom, and especially this last year too, we've all learned how to connect in different ways. I remember, it was quite a few years back, me and the kids, we found an idea on the internet and we thought it would be cute to do. And we sent a hug. So the hug was we traced their hands, and then we took a string or wrapping ribbon, whatever, and we measured it from the top of their head to the bottom of their feet, and then we connected their hands on both sides. And so we sent them, all the grandparents, because my mother-in-law lives 3 hours away from us as well and doesn't see them quite as often. So we sent hugs in the mail. So I had a little note on the hands explaining what the hug is. And I think everybody still, whenever I go over to their houses, everybody still has that hug on display. And that was several years ago. So while it might seem very minimal to you, those things mean so much, make such an impact, especially when you can't get together as often as you'd like. Phone calls go a long way. FaceTiming's always fun as well. And then plan those extended stays with ideas in mind as well. Just that quality over quantity, I think, is really important too when you want to spend time with people from far away.
And before we end this segment, shall we have a special news bulletin from one of our people today? John?
Well, Kathy, it's official. I'm headed into grandpa territory for the first time. My daughter Megan and husband Alex are expecting, and the little bundle of joy will arrive in November, and I can't wait.
That's so exciting. We're so thrilled for you, John. Congratulations. Kelly, I'm sure that you can model a lot of good things for him, as can Clarice, and hopefully Dale and I can as well from our experience. But there's nothing like being a grandparent. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. You come from a very personal perspective.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kelly, and congratulations, John. Coming up, an activity created 50 plus years ago is more popular than ever, even with seniors. Stay with us. The Aging Adventure continues. We're back on the Aging Adventure. I'm Dale Johnson with Kathy and John. Into the world of pickleball with Ann Schernikau, fitness instructor at Legacy Terrace.
And I can't imagine. I mean, do you play with gherkins? You play with dills, hamburger slices? How do you play ball with pickles?
Pickleball is so much fun. It's basically a miniature tennis game. It's like a tennis court. It's smaller. You play with a plastic ball with holes in it, so it's like a wiffle ball. You play with a smaller paddle, does not have strings in it. It's solid. but it has elements of ping pong and badminton as well. And most people play doubles, but you can play singles. It's super fun. I've been a tennis player since I was 12. I used to teach and coach tennis, but back in 2017, I got interested with a friend and I haven't looked back. I haven't picked up a tennis racket. It's all pickleball for me.
Why is it called pickleball?
Pickleball. So let me tell you, it got started on an island in Brain Bridge, Washington, near Seattle. A group of dads, it was the summer months and vacationing with their families. And it was a cruddy, icky day at the lake. And so these dads came home from whatever they were doing, and the kids were bored. And so they said, let's find out something. Let's just create something. So these dads, they had a badminton court, and it was on cement. So they lowered the badminton net, so it was about 3 feet high off the ground, grabbed a plastic baseball, and some paddles. That's how it was created. But why is it called pickleball? Well, there was a family dog. The dog's name was Pickles. Okay, so Pickles, the dog, loved to chase after the ball. So they were like, why not call it pickleball? So that's how the name came about.
It certainly is a hot activity for people of all ages. And I think a lot of people, until you just gave that explanation, thought that it was a new thing because they're hearing so much more about it. And that is true, right? People of all ages and all abilities can play pickleball.
Absolutely. When I first started, I was kind of getting the impression that people were saying it was for seniors or tennis players that were aging and didn't want to move as much. But oh my gosh, it has just grown about 23% last year all over the country. And I am seeing my own kids play who are in their 20s. I play with friends who are, believe it or not, in their late 70s. And I even know somebody who is 90 that currently plays. So it's just popular all over town and I think all across the country. It's just super fun.
What makes pickleball especially appropriate and beneficial for seniors?
It's a smaller court, so you don't have as much area to cover if you were a former tennis player. Great social outlet. People I have met are so friendly, inclusive. Beginners are welcome. It's just a very encouraging community. People just want to include you. But for senior purposes, it keeps you moving. Your balance, your range of motion, your cardiovascular, your just overall health by exercising. So all of those elements just add to the health of seniors and really anybody.
Are there lots of options as far as places to do it? And can you give us some tips on getting started?
There's a website for Lincoln Pickleball, which is pickleballlincoln.com. And if you get on that website, there's everything you'd want to know. Rules, events, how to get started, leagues, lessons, and then where you can play around town. So right now, summer, obviously, the main place is 22nd and Highway 2, Peterson Park. And those are actual pickleball courts. So there's 10 of them. Great place to play. But because it's gotten so popular, there's 5 satellite parks around town, which have 2 tennis courts. And on each end of the tennis court, a pickleball court can be fit. And so they have gone in the city and painted lines to accommodate pickleball. And then there is a lock box at each park. I'll tell you the parks here in a sec, with 4 nets. So people can show up, get in the lock box and get out a net and set it up. And those parks around town are Eden, Sang, Ballard, Henry, and Roberts. And besides summer play, winter play, they can do Speedway Motors. They have a big gym that they set up in the mornings from like 8 until noon, and then even at some private health clubs.
Sounds like a great way to stay active, stay moving, keep those joints in operation, and maybe get a little exercise while you're doing it. Thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Pickleball and grandparenting today on the Aging Adventure. And Kathy, I'm sure you share the joy that John just announced earlier that John will be a grandparent here very soon.
So excited. I can't stand it. This was great news.
Congratulations again,
I thought
John.
so too.
Every Saturday, we look at retirement through the creative lens of the legacy retirement communities. Join us next week. I'm Dale Johnson.